Hello, beautiful beings. Thank you so much for joining me for this free masterclass, Hack Your Hormones, Cycle Collaboration to Boost Happiness, Productivity, and Inner Peace. I'm Leslie Draffin. I am a menstrual cycle coach. I have my own podcast called The Light Within, and I am a TV news anchor. And I really felt called to this work after experiencing some pretty big period problems of my own. I came off of hormonal birth control about 2 years ago and immediately had some physical symptoms like acne and hair loss, mood swings, and a total loss of libido. As I learned to collaborate with my cycle, I also started uncovering all of these stories and these beliefs that I had held on to about my cycle and about my body. And so I had to really work on getting rid of those beliefs, those self-limiting unconscious beliefs, so that I could step fully into my power. And I really feel like it is my mission on the planet to help heal period pain, but also to help you step into the power that can come with aligning with your cycle, while also eradicating fear and shame around the cycle and helping you come home to your body. So I have to ask you, did you know that you have a superpower? Yeah, you totally do. And it's your menstrual cycle. Now, if you have never heard that before, don't worry, you are not alone. Society tells us all of these messed up stories about our menstrual cycle. Things like, oh, it's gross. Just hide it. Don't talk about it. Certainly don't talk about it. You should be ashamed of that. Or it's nasty and dirty. Never tells you that it's your superpower. And I kind of have a belief about that. I feel like it's because if we all, as menstruators and women, stood in our power and learned to harness our superpower, we would truly be unstoppable. Unstoppable. So why is our period our superpower? 2 reasons. 1, it is uniquely yours. No one else has the menstrual cycle you have, even if you do sync up with other menstruators. And then number 2, the second reason, is because it is what sets you up to compete in a world designed for male hormones without experiencing things like burnout and stress and feeling like you're going through life in a haze, right? We can, as menstruators, compete in a male-dominated world. Absolutely, we can. But when we don't honor our cyclical nature, that's when problems can pop up. And so now that we know we have a superpower, where does it come from? It comes from something called the infradian rhythm. Now, I'm going to use an analogy throughout this, and I think it's kind of funny. It's Spider-Man, right? If you've ever seen one of the Spider-Man movies, there's tons out. I recently watched the new one where there was like all the old Spider-Mans in the same movie. I don't remember the name of it, like Homecoming or something. Anyway, in the story of Spider-Man, Peter Parker gets bitten by a spider. And that is where these superpowers come from. But then things start happening to help him realize he has a superpower, right? There's that one scene where he's like in his bedroom and all hell's breaking loose. He's like shooting the webs out of his hands, and then he's like jumping up and down because he has those like super like spidery skills, but he doesn't know yet how to use the superpower. And I feel like that's probably where you are right now. You've just discovered, hey, I have a superpower, right? Now, where is that coming from? That is the infradian rhythm. So in this analogy, his spider bite is your infradian rhythm. So what is the infradian rhythm? It is one of the hormonal biological clocks that help you function in life. You've probably heard of the big one, the circadian rhythm. It is a 24-hour cycle, much like the sun, that regulates things like your digestion and your sleep. Everybody, every human has a circadian rhythm. Only menstruators and women have the infradian rhythm. Now, this one, it starts at puberty and it lasts until menopause. And unlike the 24-hour circadian rhythm, the infradian rhythm lasts much longer. It lasts the entire length of your menstrual cycle. So if you have a 28-day cycle, it lasts 28 days. If you have a 33-day cycle like me, then it lasts 33 days. And within this cycle, you have 4 distinct phases called inner spring, inner summer, inner fall, and inner winter. Throughout the cycle, your hormones go up and down, kind of like the moon, right? The moon waxes and wanes. Now, throughout this clock, those up and down hormones do things like influence main biological functions in your brain, your physiology, your metabolism, your immune system, but they also provide you with some really unique gifts and strengths. So remembering that male hormones are the same every day. They go up and they go down predictably. And that the world is set up for male hormones. When we learn about this source of our superpower, the infradian rhythm, that is when we can start learning to thrive. When we honor this rhythm and we honor our superpower, we practice living in attunement with it, that is when we can do things like, thriving, getting more done in less time. But when we don't honor our infradian rhythm, when we just ignore it, and we ignore this superpower, that's when the chaos happens. That's when things happen, like Peter Parker in his bedroom, where he's trying to use his powers, but they're just not working for him. With us in our infradian rhythm, when we don't honor those hormonal ups and downs, they can do things like cause stress and adrenal fatigue and imbalances like heavy periods, missing periods, or PCOS. So it is so important that you learn how to honor the infradian rhythm and how to use your superpower. So just like Peter Parker practiced, right? I remember there's a scene where he's like in an alley and he's practicing climbing up the wall. You're going to practice using your superpower by cyclical living and tracking your cycle. Now, cyclical living simply means making choices in your life that go along with your cycle versus against your cycle. You can look at that as in things like food you eat, the movement you do, the self-care you do as well. When you honor those changes and those ups and downs, then it can do things like boost productivity, help you feel happier and more peaceful. But again, the very first step to practicing this is learning to track your cycle. So there are many reasons why you may want to track your cycle, right? The first one is so that you're not surprised, so that you know when you ovulate and you know when you're about to bleed. Like, no one likes the surprise period. The second is so that you can live in tune with these hormones that are associated with your menstrual cycle. When you really get down to the nitty gritty and you start tracking your cycle over several months, you will learn when the best time is to plan certain events, like when to plan a first date, when to ask for a raise. It'll help you feel happier. It'll help you feel more peaceful. You will learn when you need to take more time for yourself so that you don't get burnt out. It can also help you boost your body image and give yourself more grace when you have days where you don't feel good about your body. And you may learn to understand why you're not feeling that great about your body. It can help you boost your sex drive and, in general, help you honor the cyclical nature within you. So who can track their cycles? Anybody. Anybody can track their cycle. The cycles will be different, sure. And like I said before, your cycle is uniquely yours. So track the cycle you have. If you're on hormonal birth control, can you track? Yes. If you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding, can you track? Yes. If you do not have a period for some reason, can you track it? Yep. If you're not born with a womb, can you track your period? Can you track your menstrual cycle? Yes. It is my belief that anyone who menstruates or identifies as a woman can track your cycle, okay? So let's start with folks who may not have a period. First of all, there are a bunch of reasons why you might not have a period. Could be pregnant, could be breastfeeding, you may have a hormonal imbalance, or maybe you were born without a womb. If that applies to you, that's fine. You're gonna track your cycle with the moon. The first day of your bleed is the new moon. And then about 14 days later, you ovulate with the full moon. The first half of your cycle, new moon to full moon, and the second half, full moon to new moon. In total, you will have a cycle that's about 29 days. The moon cycle is at roughly 29 29.5 days or 29.6 days, but we're going to round down to 29 days. And you, as you get familiar with this, you can experiment with how many days you want to be bleeding and how many days you want to be ovulating. It is really up to you. So what about those folks who are on hormonal contraceptives? Well, if you're on the IUD or you do not have a breakthrough bleed, then you would track with the moon, like we just talked about, because you don't have a period. When you are on something like the pill, again, you do not have a period. If you're wondering why, you can message me and I'll explain it to you. But you have a breakthrough bleed that we are going to treat like a period. Okay, so if you're on hormonal birth control, you absolutely can track your cycle. And I feel like it's a really good thing to learn because it'll help you when you stop taking the pill. Because I assume you are at some point not going to take the pill, whether it's because you're planning to get pregnant, you have found other forms of birth control, or you're at an age when you're going to go through menopause. And so you wouldn't need the pill anymore, right? You can still get the benefits of productivity and happiness and inner peace, even when you're on the pill. However, I do have to tell you, you won't feel them as strongly because you are not having a natural cycle. So if you are on the pill, we're splitting your cycle in half. The first half of your cycle is day 1 of your period through about 14 days later. So roughly halfway through the next pill pack. You can even like count 14 days and put a little circle because the pill pack has 28 pills in it, right? And that's where 14 comes from. And then the second half of your cycle would be day 15 through to day 28. Again, this is a way to track, and it also takes into account the pill bleed. It's not just like the start of the pack, because you could just like go with the start of the pack, but I feel like this more closely aligns with what your actual cycle ups and downs would be. So the first day of your breakthrough bleed is day 1, count 14 days, do a little circle, and then that would signify the beginning of your second half. Now, this also signifies your yin energy, which is your inner energy for the first part of your cycle, and your yang energy for the next half. If you have a natural bleed, then this is how you're starting your cycle tracking. Day 1 is when you have your period. If you have a paper cycle tracker like this one here, this is my cycle tracker, you would put day 1 here and then write the date along the outer circle and the days above it. And then the inside is where you would ask yourself questions like, how do I feel physically? How do I feel mentally? How do I feel emotionally? So no matter how you track your cycle, whether it's with the moon, whether you're on hormonal birth control or you are non-medicated bleed, you're still going to take time every day to tune into your body and ask yourself, you know, what do you need physically? What do you need emotionally? What do you need mentally? What do you need spiritually? You're going to also ask yourself, what do I need to support myself with today? What would I complain about today? And what's my biggest win? You can also track things like your skin, your digestion, your sleep. You can really track anything and just know that this is getting data. This is our practice. Like Peter Parker practicing with his superpowers, this is us practicing. Now you can use a paper tracker like I showed you here. And I have a free one on my Instagram. Or you can use an app. I like apps. I use Thermometer because I take my temperature every morning and it syncs. Although I do really suggest doing this on paper because it feels more like journaling. And we know journaling has a ton of health benefits, especially for making you feel less stressed out. That's why I like a paper tracker. So as you start to track, the first thing you have to know is it's going to take time, right? You're not going to immediately start tracking and boom, have all the knowledge. So you need to learn to track and commit yourself to tracking, I say, for at least 3 cycles, right? So for 3 months, we'll say, you're asking yourself those questions, you know, what do I need today? How do I feel today? And you're really tuning in and you are being honest, right? And you're not judging what comes up. You're being honest. Then you are going to start to notice the patterns, okay? And here's where true optimization happens. you start to notice patterns like, when do I feel best in my body? When do I have the best energy? When am I really good at problem solving, right? You may find it also like, when do I struggle the most? And you're just noticing those patterns. Nothing more. You're not judging them, you're just becoming aware. You might notice that in your tracker, you've got some times where you feel like you're great at certain things and other times where you're great at other things, right? Times when your superpowers are at their peak and times when, there might not be quite at your peak. So for instance, let's say maybe you notice sometimes you're really creative and sometimes you really want to spend time by yourself. Sometimes you feel like you're outward and you want to hang out with all of your friends, and other times you want to stay home and clean the house. All of these various strengths throughout your cycle point to your superpowers and point to those ebbs and flows in your energy and your hormones. So for the purpose of this masterclass, we're going to look at two halves of your cycle. We're going to split your cycle in half, first half and the second half. We're going to talk about two energies and the two hormones that rule those halves. So the first half is called yang energy, and the second half is called yin. Now, this is a very basic look at a cycle, okay? In this, you can see where my little cursor is. Your period would be right here at the end of the second half of your cycle. Period ends, and your hormones start to increase and your energy gets higher, right? You're more outward and you're more yang. Versus after ovulation, your energy decreases a lot. You feel more inward versus outward, and that is your yin. In for yin, okay? Know that in reality, these two parts are not necessarily equal in length, but for the purpose of this picture, it was easiest to show you that way. So what hormones are ruling those two halves of your cycle? So in the first half of your cycle, from the time your period ends through ovulation, that is when estrogen is the dominant hormone. It's when you're ruled by estrogen. It is what helps you feel more energetic, more outward, more creative. It can help you feel more social, and it can also make your body feel very light, very strong, and you might not feel as hungry. This is all for the first half of your cycle when you are yang and when your estrogen is high. On the flip side, the second half of your cycle is ruled by the hormone progesterone. This is a more calming effect. It could make you feel more tired. It might make you feel hungrier. And it will do things like make you have better problem-solving skills. You'll be able to look at the big picture of things and think, okay, I need to work on this, 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 and this. Little fine-tuned, more detail-oriented tasks. Women's hormone expert Elisa Vitti says that in this half of your cycle, you need about 250 calories more every single day. So eat if you're hungry, right? Not eating in this cycle can actually boost your cortisol levels and make you feel more stressed. So whereas in the first half, you might not have felt so hungry, in the second half, when you're hungry, make sure you eat. So here's what the hormones look like in action, right? This is to prove to you I'm not lying. The first half of your cycle is from this ovulation, excuse me, to the left. Whereas the second half, ovulation to the right. Now you see the orange line, that's estrogen. You see how much it's peaked in the first half? It's because it's the dominant hormone. And the second half of your cycle is the progesterone. It peaks there. And like I said, it's the dominant hormone in the second half of your cycle. So now that you know you have two distinct cycle halves, first half estrogen and outward energy, second half progesterone, inner energy, let's look at your brain, okay? Because like I mentioned before, your infradian rhythm, your superpower, it does a lot of different things. And it affects a lot of different functions within your body, the brain being one of the big ones. The female brain, it can change up to 25% during your cycle, mainly because of estrogen. In the first half, where your yang energy is high, Skyrocketing estrogen means that you're mentally sharp, you're creative, and you can communicate really well. You may feel more verbal and more outgoing. Right now, I am in my first half. My estrogen is rising. I'm feeling very outward, yang, and I'm good at communicating. Now, after your ovulation and into that second half of your cycle, the estrogen will decrease. Let's go back and look. As you can see, the orange line goes down and progesterone, the blue line, goes up. So that means the outward focus turns inward. It's a time to hold on to boundaries, to complete those detail-oriented tasks and do things like get organized. Okay? Let's look back at this slide one more time. Do you see this part right here, at the very beginning? Your period. So the two hormones, orange line, blue line, estrogen, progesterone, they're very low. They're at their lowest point. But what's interesting in the brain at this point is that your right and left hemispheres actually can communicate together much easier. The line between your brain halves is the thinnest during this phase. So it looks like you being able to take a broad look at your life and maybe figure out what's working, what's not working. In your menstruation, in your period, when you learn to really start to sit with it and honor it, you may find things like messages from the universe. You may find downloads and ideas for brand new courses or new jobs or new hobbies, or you might even find things like realizing your relationship doesn't work. All of that can happen during menstruation because the right and left sides of your brain are communicating so well together. And I really believe that it's because when we're bleeding, we are the closest to source energy. We're closest to the universe. So let's look at how we can boost productivity by working with our brain strengths during those two halves of the cycle. And also just know that these are suggestions, right? Your cycle is your cycle. And so if you don't really feel in alignment with these things, that's okay. Awareness is the first step. So first half of your cycle, in your yang, outward, estrogen-filled energy, you are going to be creative AF. You are going to be excellent at brainstorming. So try new things, learn a new task, create lists after lists after list. As the ideas pop into your brain, you need to write them down. Believe me, because you may lose something if you don't. It's a great time to be outward and put yourself out there. So hang out with friends, maybe plan a party, volunteer, go on a date. If you need to negotiate a contract or ask for a raise, do it in this half of your cycle because your outward energy makes you more magnetic. You are really good at communicating so that you can discuss and tell and express your worth. And yeah, you're just gonna feel really natural about those things. Your body image during this time may also be higher because that estrogen is making you feel lighter, more energetic. Your digestion might be firing pretty well. All of these things are great for the first half of your cycle to make you more productive. Now, when it comes to the second half of your cycle, when estrogen decreases and progesterone rises, you're gonna feel more inward and more detail oriented. So this is an excellent time to write, research, bookkeep, do your taxes, do little detail-oriented tasks. You might find it easier to organize or clean. Look back at the month and think what worked and what didn't work. Have a very crucial eye and, really figure out what went really well and what didn't go so well, and maybe what could I change. Finally, I suggest spending time alone, journaling, and napping, all as a way to boost productivity. Yeah, even a nap. Let's talk about superpower number 2. So superpower number 2 is your stress management. Now, in the second half of your cycle, when progesterone is high, so is the stress hormone cortisol. It is likely because your body wants to help protect a possibly fertilized egg. But we also note stress is the #1 impactor of your menstrual cycle. And if it is unchecked, it can harm your nervous system, your immune system, and your metabolism. Think about when you're stressed. Do you get more sick? Are you finding yourself be more anxious when you have a lot of stress in your life? You might feel more tired, more burnt out. You could lose your sex drive. It could impact your appetite. All of those things can happen when your stress is high. Also, stress can hurt your brain. It can hurt your memory. It can hurt your learning and your mental health. So it's really, really important to make sure that you are doing everything you can to honor your cycle and not stress it out, especially in that second half. That's why I feel like rest is so important. It can boost your productivity, right? But it can also help you deal with stress because you need rest to survive. So how can we help ourselves feel more peaceful? And how can we decrease stress, especially in the second half of your cycle? Well, the first thing I say to do is breathe, right? Meditate, breathe, flush your body with oxygen, especially in times when you feel very stressed out. I like to breathe into my womb space, a deep inhale through the nose, holding the breath, and then exhaling through the mouth. A couple of times whenever I feel very stressed. I do this, before I go into work. I do it if I've had just like a lot of meetings back to back to back. I'll just take a little time for myself and breathe. The second way that you can help yourself feel better and decrease your stress is not to stress your body out further in your second half by doing things like intense exercise. Okay? In the second half of your cycle, your cortisol is already high. Don't make it higher by doing some insane workouts. Things like HIIT, no. Intermittent fasting, hell no. All of those things raise cortisol. And that is bad when your cortisol is already high. Okay? So you're going to do things like eat when you're hungry. You're going to wake up and eat breakfast. You're not doing fasted workouts. You're not doing intense workouts. Sure, move your body, but maybe you do things like take a long walk, take a long bike ride, do Pilates versus lifting heavy weights, or going to a boot camp class, or doing HIIT, high intensity interval training. Listen to your body, check in with yourself, and breathe into that when you are tracking your cycle, and be honest, be brutally honest with what you need to do today and honor what comes up. When we do things like, let's say you have scheduled a workout class, but it's in the afternoon, and in the morning you ask yourself, what do I need today? And your body says, I need to rest. Well, you look at your calendar, you're like, oh shit, I already have this workout class in the schedule, and if I don't go, I'm going to lose $10. That's how mine is if I don't cancel it within a certain amount of time. Lose $10 or not honor your cycle. I can see both ways, right? Like, I don't like to lose money, but when you go to that class and you stress your body out more after it has told you you need to rest, one, it can raise your cortisol, especially if you are in your second half of your cycle. And if you are feeling stressed and you're feeling tired, there's a good chance your cortisol is high. And in this world we live in now, I feel like all of our cortisol is high, no matter what. But then if you go ahead and go to that class and you don't honor yourself, what does that teach yourself, right? Like, if you're trying to make a relationship with your body and your cycle and you don't pay attention to it and honor it, what kind of relationship is that actually establishing? A pretty shitty one, if you ask me. So the last thing you can do to really start increasing inner peace is learning to do 1% more for yourself. For me, it looks like making boundaries and setting boundaries. So when you're looking at your cycle tracker, you may start to notice, I felt irritated. And maybe that's happening like day after day after day. Okay, what's making me irritated? Why am I feeling irritated? How could I support myself through these feelings? Do I need more time alone? If that's a yes, take it. Even if it's just 1 minute of breathing. Hopefully it's more than 1 minute, but start with one. If you're a busy mom, maybe that looks like you're just stepping into the pantry for a minute, right? You've seen all those videos where moms are like hiding in the pantry where their kids are like trying to get under the door. Maybe it's 1 minute like that. Hopefully you have a partner or a caregiver or a parent or a friend who can maybe take your kid for a couple of more minutes, like 10, 30 to an hour, so that you can give yourself more space. But just doing 1% more, 1% more every day is where you're going to start. The worst thing you could do is look at this and say, all right, I'm going to do bath time, meditate, breath work, journal, listen to a podcast, read a book, all to help me feel less stressed. Those make me feel so stressed just thinking about all those steps. So what's one thing you could do instead? What is 1% more you could do? For me, my thing I love to do is try to decrease distractions at bedtime. It's hard, right? Because I have a tendency to just want to scroll. But setting a nighttime routine and setting the boundary of, okay, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode and I'm going to read instead. Or I'm going to put my phone in another room and I'm going to use our alarm clock instead. Just setting a little boundary like that can help you create more inner peace because it's taking more time for yourself. And especially in that second half of your cycle when your cortisol is already high, it's even more important. So superpower number 3, boosting happiness. Cycle collaboration gives you permission to be cyclical. It gives you permission to say, today I feel like shit, and that's okay. It gives you permission to say, I need more time for myself. It gives you permission to say, you know what? I want to hang out with my friends. Seeing the patterns in your cycle help you adjust your life to live in alignment. And that's how we maintain mood and happiness. So while hacking hormones can really help us have control over our cycles, it only helps us when we actually do the thing, right? And I feel like cycle collaboration, like I said, does give us permission to be more cyclical. And it also helps us speak up for what we really want. When we start to track our cycle and we notice the needs, wants, and desires that we are writing in here, then we know what to express to our partners, to our family, to our loved ones, to our friends, to our coworkers. So in my life, it looks like when I have my period, there's a little space at work that's kind of like a community workspace. We have a very open floor plan. When I have my period, I go to the little cubbyhole room, is what I call it, because I don't want to be around people. And I don't have to tell my coworkers Leslie has her period, so she doesn't want to be around people. Although I have plenty of times. As a menstrual cycle coach, believe me, they know way more about my menstrual cycle than most workplaces, I'm sure. But I go to the little cubbyhole room, and that is my boundary. That is my signal. You know what? I've got work to do, and I don't want to be in the hustle and bustle of our open floor plan office. This can also look like boosting happiness by expressing what you want sexually. If you're in a partnered relationship and you're feeling, a little feisty during certain parts of your cycle, communicate that with your partner. I promise they're going to love it. And the same goes for when you don't. For me and for my husband, when we discuss it more openly before it gets time, to like trying to get busy, if I'm already from the beginning of the day saying it's not going to happen, there's a lot less room for hurt feelings and, just general irritation. So just remember, collaborating with your cycle gives you permission to be cyclical. It gives you the chance to honor your moods and your emotions and to see things as strengths rather than weaknesses. Now, for me, the true goal, right? The true Peter Parker goal was to save the planet. And I think that collaborating with your menstrual cycle can help us all save the planet, right? Like if we're standing in our power as menstruators, after we've practiced our superpower, after realizing we have a superpower, that is empowering. And in that empowerment, that's how we rise. That's how we stand together and we overcome all the shit. So think of that, right? Think of that as your end goal. How can I truly optimize my life and feel most empowered, tuned in, and turned on by collaborating with my cycle? Boosting productivity, happiness, and inner peace are just the first steps. They're just scraping the surface of what is possible when it comes to cycle collaboration, right? You can do so much more than just those 3 things. If you ever feel like you pass through life kind of just turned off, or life passes you by without you feeling really tuned in, tune into your cycle. If you feel burnt out, frustrated, and stressed, tune into your cycle. If you find that you are snapping at your loved ones, if you're snapping at your kids, if you feel like, like I said, life is just passing you by and you're just like in a cloud of foggy haze, tune into your cycle. Collaborate with your cycle. It will empower you. It will change your life. It truly will. If you want to learn more about this, we really just scratched the surface. If you feel like you want to learn to collaborate with your cycle, if you want to get off the hamster wheel of dieting and exercising, if you're on birth control and you want to come off of it and you need some support, reach out. You can send me a DM. I have time this week for 5 free cycle check-in calls where we can just, shoot the shit together and let's talk about your period. It's my favorite thing. You can grab a spot by just DMing me on Instagram at Leslie Draffin. I also have a new 4-month group coaching container that launches in May. It is for any frustrated or burnt out menstruator who wants to learn how to collaborate with their cycle, how to tune into their feminine energy, how to reawaken their life, truly. If you feel like you are just, like I said, trudging along without feeling lit up, reach out to me. That is not how life is supposed to be. Life is supposed to be lit the fuck up. And I wholeheartedly believe the key to it is your menstrual cycle. So please reach out, send me a DM, send me an email, hello@lesliedraffin.com. Let's talk about it. Because I, like I said, have a mission of making people feel more tuned in and turned on and lit up in their bodies and going through life like the empowered, beautiful, badass menstruator that you are. So thank you so much for coming to this masterclass. Please remember, if you take nothing else away from this, your menstrual cycle is your superpower. It is the #1 untapped resource on the planet. And so when you collaborate with it, you can learn to optimize your life, live in alignment, and step into your power. Thank you so much. Again, send me a DM at Leslie Draffin. I want to hear from you. I want to help you out. Together, we can start the period revolution and change the world. I'll see you later.